And then they asked me if I would come and play on a bunch of the demos, which I did. It was really watching the embryonic form of Steely Dan. Donald and Walter couldn't find themselves being happy with anything that was coming in the intro.
Do It Again, Dirty Work, Reeling in the Years, that first Can't Buy a Thrill album by Steely Dan. 1972. Elliott Randall was in the fold in the beginning of the making of Steely Dan. He did the famous guitar solo on Reeling in the Years. Elliott talks about doing that guitar solo, how Jimmy Page called it one of his favorites of all time, his first impressions of Donald Fagen and Walter Becker, and a whole bunch more. The great guitar god, Elliott Randall, on Rock History Music. You helped Donald Fagen and Walter Becker. You helped them on a demo in the early days, long before. Was that a band yet, or?
Good question. It was a band in the making. Basically, Donald and Walter and I were all part of a backing band for Jay and the Americans. And both Marty and Kenny from the Americans discovered that Donald and Walter had these other fine qualities other than just playing bass and keyboards. So Kenny took them into the studio and started making demos. And then they asked me if I would come and play on a bunch of the demos, which I did. It was great. It was, it was really watching the embryonic form of Steely Dan. And it wasn't until a year later, maybe, that the tapes found their way out to LA. And Jay Lasker, who was the president of ABC Dunhill, signed them as writers. And it wasn't until 6 months, 7 months went by where they were doing these little sessions, when they weren't supposed to be late at night in the studio. And Jay said, "Oh, I think these guys have something here." So Steely Dan was basically born.
What was your first impression of both guys when you first met them?
I really liked them. They were, you could say they were strange, and I don't mean that in any sort of bad way. They were just non-conventional guys whose focus was on art, literature, music. And they did an incredible job. Certainly, in the early days, through that whole succession of albums, of really pushing the boundaries. Reelin in the Years, Do It Again were almost pop compared to where they went.
Yeah.
But it was always interesting. Always interesting.
I asked Jeff about, I says, well, Do It Again, Round and Round, Bodhisattva. I says, I used to be a big Buddhist myself, not as much anymore, but did you know, Don? I don't even know which one it was that they were into Buddhism back then.
I didn't know that.
See, he didn't either. He and I haven't published that yet. I don't think I put that part up yet. And I'm going, came out in the lyrics, or sometimes you know how it is. If you're pregnant, you notice pregnant women. If you're hyper focused on the number 9, you're going to see it everywhere, right? You never really know. Was he a reluctant lead singer back then? I always got the vibe that.
God, yes, absolutely. He hated the sound of his own voice, which is why they asked David Palmer to come and sing.
Yeah.
At a certain point, though, through about half of the first record, Donald decided that he wasn't happy with how David was portraying the way the song should go in his mind. And so he reluctantly took the reins as the vocalist. And of course, he's a wonderful vocalist. He's very, very expressive.
Yeah. And that's such different singers, too. That's the other thing. I mean, there's bands all over the place that have two singers that sound very different, and it works. But in Can't Buy a Thrill, I remember going, Mr. Palmer's vocals I love, but there was just something about Donald. I mean, you like what you like, right? You can't help that. That's the thing. Tell me about the guitar solo, that famous. Oh my God! I remember thinking it's the song with a guitar solo, or no, a guitar bridge. But tell me about your part in that.
Well, the reason I was asked to come and play to begin with for that song was Donald and Walter couldn't find themselves being happy with anything that was coming in the intro. Right? Different people tried different things and it just wasn't making them happy. So I get a call, Elliott, would you come and play on this thing? We'll see what happens. We're at the Village Recorder such and such at night. I went. I played it. I asked him to play it down once so that I could get an idea of what the tune was. And I hadn't demoed it with him earlier, so it was brand new to me. And I liked it. I liked several things about it. I liked the lyrics. I liked Denny's part was down already. And it felt Celtic to me, Denny's part, which basically Donald had written out.
Now that you mention it. Yeah. Now that you mention it. Yeah.
It's totally Celtic. So I did an EP back about a little after the turn of the century, in which I did my own version of Reelin. And I used a lot of Celtic musicians. I'm friends with Bill Whelan, the guy who wrote Riverdance. So he got me all these wonderful, wonderful, fiddlers and barone players. And we did it a very different version. And I used Chuck Rainey and Bernard Purdy as part of the rhythm section so that it bridges the gap between the two styles. But yeah, so here I am loving the tune, saying, can I see a copy of the lyrics, please? So they did. They showed me the lyric. I said, great. Okay, let's give it a try. They ran the tape, and I finished playing from beginning to end. And Gary went, that's it, we got it. And from the back, you hear the little tape engineer, the tape operator going, I never pressed the red button. So whether or not it was as good as or better than what you're hearing now, we'll never know. Having said that, the next take was another one taker all the way through. And what you're hearing is what I did. They actually pulled out a couple of extra fills, which you wind up hearing in the quad version, which I'm not that crazy about. But I thought it really worked really well.
Jimmy Page loves it.
I love Jimmy Page loving it.
That's amazing. The fact that Jimmy Page, I mean, of course, and listen, there's a part of every artist that has, it's just little old me, it's just like, but I hate to ask you an obvious question, but you get it, right? Like that is a monumental stop in your seat, staring at the speaker's moment in music.
It's a heck of an accolade, and I mean, I first met Jimmy back in 1967. He was on tour with the Yardbirds, and they were playing in Lima, Ohio, which is where I used to teach. And we got on like a house on fire. And then we hadn't really seen each other, bar a couple of times, when Zeppelin played the Garden or whatever. And, when I heard that he complimented me on that, I was like, no, that's really, really nice. He doesn't have to, he's a guitar god, isn't he? So
what's your opinion on him on the Zeppelin thing? I'm just kind of curious. And I mean, his music.
He's a great creator. He's a really, really good creator. He understands intrinsically what it takes to make a really good sounding record. Of course, Jimmy was a studio guitar player in London for years before Zeppelin. So, he just had it and still has it.
So when you came back to Steely Dan, was it Reeling, or was it the two albums together that you just happened to be in LA to perform? It was because you were on Katie Lied and
the one right after, the Royal Scam.
The Royal Scam, right?
Yeah. So long story short on that is, after turning down an offer to join the band on the first album.
So they asked you to join the band, and was it immediate? You knew you didn't want to? I mean,
I took certain things into consideration. One of them was knowing all of the characters. And the other was knowing that if I was going to join the band, one of the guitarists would be unjoining the band.
Right.
So out of loyalty, And out of seeing the scene for, what it might have become, which it did, I thought to myself, literally, these guys are not going to last as a band with the personnel longer than 3 albums. So on the first album, I did Reelin. I also did this really strange, very strange solo called Kings. And I didn't play on the second or third because they were the band themselves. And the fourth album, Donnie and Walter decided to try a bunch of different players. So I was invited back and got to play Throwback the Little Ones. That's right. Which was fun. It was, for you musicians out there, it was quite the challenge because it was basically, Elliott, roam free, but you see these notes here, you got to play these. And what it was it was doubling the horn parts that they had already put down. So it was going improvise, read, improvise. So it was quite a challenge. But I loved it, and I loved the way it came out.
Do you remember who played drums on that? I don't remember. It doesn't say on Wiki. I looked it up and I couldn't find it.
That's a good question, and I don't have an answer for that.
That's okay.
I was always brought in after the fact. I was one of the people who would, sort of finish up the painting, as it were. The third album that I did with them, which was
Royal
Scam, was so much fun. Man,
so what was the difference between those two? What made that so much funner?
Okay. Yeah. The first of the two we did in LA. The second of the two we did in New York. Different personnel, different vibe altogether. I mean, the vibe between the two albums is night and day. And what happened was Purdy and Rainey were both playing on the rhythm tracks, or at least on the rhythm tracks that I played. And Paul Griffin was playing keyboards. Now, Donald and Walter knew the dirt about how these 3 other guys sometimes got along, but sometimes could bite each other's heads off. And they wanted an album that actually had a large degree of angst and to it. So they pushed every button on those 3 guys, and they could have killed each other by the time those sessions were over. But the music hung together like anybody's business.
So who were the 3 guys?
It was Bernard Purdy,
right,
the drummer,
of course,
Chuck Rainey on bass, and Paul Griffin on keyboards.
Amazing. I mean, I've heard of stuff like that. To sort of, there's a, music there's a feeling. I used to think that when I had more fervor for what I did on the radio, it came across. I mean, I was a really new age guy for a lot of years, but I remember thinking things have feelings to them, and it doesn't hurt if you've got it. And hopefully it's the old thing where the album track sounds good, but the live version, oh my God. Sure. So I get that, but it was just overall a fun experience for you.
I'm sorry, it was
overall a fun experience for you. The Royal Scam.
Loved it. I loved every minute of it.
Tell me about.
And I still love every minute that I spend with the Steely Dan organization, if you will. I've done a couple of shows with them in London.
Yeah,
and it was a dream come true. Basically, I didn't have to go back to a hotel room. Just getting up on stage, playing with my friends, and going home.
That's different, yeah. So, what did you play when you obviously play Reeling in the Years? But when you come up on stage, do you play anything else?
I wound up doing whatever the encore was after Reelin actually was an encore at that point, and then there was an encore, which I don't remember.
Darren Lowry wanted me to ask you. He's a fan of the channel. What guitar and amp did you use on Reelin?
A question I get a lot.
Of course.
This guy.
Oh, really?
This is my 1963 Fender Stratocaster. It's got a Gibson humbucking pickup in the neck position, which I put on because of a wonderful Canadian guitarist called Dominic Troiano.
I just interviewed his brother.
Frank, it's great. They're nice people. He's nice. Dominic was a prince. He was an absolute prince. So yeah, I put this pickup on it and never looked back. I always loved this extra fat, juicy stuff that the pickup brings to the character of the instrument. And so for Reelin, I get to this. When I got to the studio, I realized that there was no amp there. In New York, all the studios have amplifiers. So with my box of pedals and stuff, I can make any amp sound almost like any other amp, but there was no amp. So somebody told us that there was an amp in the storeroom right next to Village Recorders, which belonged to a guy who's now my friend, but I didn't know at the time. And it was this great, big, absolutely huge Ampeg VST amp. It had hundreds of watts in the amplifier itself and 8 10-inch speakers. It was loud. I mean, it was seriously, seriously loud. And somehow for the sound that I wanted, the best sound was to crank it all the way up. And I did it. And Roger just opened the door to the studio and said, whoa, and got himself a set of ear protectors, not earphones, ear protectors. Went out, so I did this a little bit as I was playing, found the spot in the room where he could place one AKG 414 microphone. Put it there, and the sound you get is the guitar, a cable, the amplifier on full blast, no pedals, no nothing. But I mean, you got to credit, it wasn't just me, it was Roger's engineering that brought the sound out even further and better.
Dominic Triano, while I was doing this, putting this special together, because I'm having to go by year, it's an arduous task. It's like, it's going to be a bit, I'm starting in 1960, I think. I haven't even decided yet, and going every video is a year. But with Dominic, so you knew him.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was playing with Bush at the time. They had just, it was right post Mandela.
Yeah, interesting character.
Sweet man, really sweet man.
Some people, when they answer this question, they'll say things. I hate to preface the question with the people's answer, but they'll say things like, well, I don't want to go there. This is something I'd rather not go there. You're in the dentist's office and someone looks at you and say, hey, buddy, so what do you do? Because you open that door and your door goes on forever because you have done so much. But if someone asks you that, okay, what do you do for a living? What do you say?
I'm a multimedia producer.
What's that mean? They'll ask.
Well, what it means is I make music.
Do you know anything I would know of? They'll ask.
It depends on the way they ask.
I've never.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking to, get a whole load of new adulators. I'm simply trying to answer a question that somebody asked me. If somebody says, are you a guitar player? Yeah, I'm a guitar player. What have you played with? And if it's the right vibe, I'll go, well, I used to play with Steely Dan. I used to play with this, that, and the other. So I don't really have a problem with it.
But that's your mantra right there. You just said, I hate to point at you, but the way you answered that question is the way we started this interview, of the fact that, yes, if it's the right vibe, you answered it like I thought you would.
Great.
No, but you know what I mean? Because you've kind of looked at your career that way of going, well, let's, this is good for, do I want to go there? Do I want to go there? Yeah. Anyway, there you go. What was your experience like with Paul Anka?
It was just a quick studio recording. I'm not sure that I even met Paul. There's a lot of people that you wind up playing with as a studio musician when you're brought in to be part of the rhythm section or an overdub person, and the person whose record it is isn't there, which is sad because you want to get to know who it is you're playing for, and could be fun.
SNL, what did you do on SNL?
My little badge said music consultant, but what it really meant was I would come in when they needed guitar for certain skits. I was consulted for a number of skits as well, some of the more punky things. which really weren't my genre, but that remember that Gilda candy slice?
I'll look it up.
Oh, it's really quite funny. Gilda Radner, Gimme Mick. So it had a lot to do with the formation of the arrangement and working with all of the not ready for primetime players to make it all happen right. And we got on like a house on fire. I don't care what anybody says about Belushi was a bully. Not to me. I mean, he was a cool guy.
And that's the classic. I mean, that's the ultimate lineup, right? Everyone talked. That's first lineup. I mean, geez.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
Remember, if you want to donate to the channel, there's a PayPal link at the very top of the description. Like our videos, comment on them, and share them on social media. We'd appreciate that. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Music. Take care.